Did you know police officers go fishing while they're on duty? This is Christina Williams with Just Criminal Law.
And David Mann, legal storytelling specialist. Well, there's a story that I'd really like to hear.
Sure. So what I mean by fishing is a lot of times officers are just out on patrol and they start to follow a vehicle, knowing if they follow the vehicle long enough, there's likely going to be a minor traffic violation where they can stop the person and see if they're up to anything illegal.
Okay, so they're out there fishing for arrests, in a sense. They're looking for someone to do anything wrong so they can find something worse after they stop them. Is that about right?
That's right. And a lot of times, even though you won't get an officer to admit it, they profile. That is, they'll look for, somebody who is black, perhaps, and for whatever reason, start to follow that individual and then pull them over, for maybe their license plate not being illuminated properly. That's actually a violation of the law. And then the next thing they know, they're talking to the driver about, the reason they pulled them over.
Right, yeah. I mean, we've heard, quite a bit about that in recent years, about racial profiling, where police are targeting members of other races that are not Caucasian, and that they're being stopped disproportionately higher than their white counterparts. Is that accurate? I mean, is there data to back that up?
Yes, absolutely. There's data to back it up. This profiling definitely happens. Now, it doesn't really get us very far as a criminal defense attorney, but an interesting statistic also is that since 2017, there's been 813 deaths as a result of police shootings of individuals who were just being stopped for a traffic violation, say like speeding.
Okay, 813 has happened since 2017. What is the proportion of those, the percentage that were non-white?
Well, for instance, 30% of the 813 were black. And that's an interesting statistic because our population across the United States is 15% black. And so there's a disproportionate amount of people that are shot in this particular statistic that are black. If there's only, 15% of our population that's black, but 30% of the people that were shot as a result of a traffic stop, that's just a disproportionate statistic. You wouldn't expect that.
Yeah, that's actually double. So it leads me to think of another thing, which is that what is often kind of, sparks these police interactions that end up maybe violent is that they might say something like, well, the person looked nervous. The suspect looked nervous. Is that something that you've heard as sort of the beginning, like that lights the fuse for things to escalate?
Well, maybe not necessarily to escalate into that situation where someone's shot. I really can't speak to that. But what I can say is that, police officers often use the reason that, okay, they're pulling someone over for speeding, say, and then the person acts nervous, and so that raises their suspicion and allows them to start asking about other criminal activity. And so it's that nervousness that they rely on. The person's unusually nervous, so I suspected they were up to criminal activity, so I started asking them about drugs. That allows the court to say, okay, well, yeah, you expanded the scope of the stop, and you went from talking about speeding to now talking about whether or not there's drugs in the car. And that's okay because you say the person was unusually nervous. And that nervousness can be explained for a lot of reasons, by a lot of reasons.
Well, yeah, when there's twice as many African American people being killed by statistics relative to the population, it follows that they might be a little nervous when the policeman pulls them over. So do you have a story of how this has played out with a client of yours?
Sure. So I had a client who was traveling through Wyoming on the interstate. He was from the West Coast. He was black, and he got pulled over. Now, the officer, said he was extremely nervous. And, it's just if a certain minority is targeted or, picked on by law enforcement, then they're going to drive around hoping they don't get pulled over and probably act extremely nervous when they do get pulled over. In this particular case, my client, acted extremely nervous. So the officer started asking him about if there was any other illegal activity he was involved in, like were there illegal drugs in the car.
Okay, so at that point, your client is maybe getting very nervous because he's thinking, what's in my car? So what ends up being in the car?
Well, I mean, he's not getting very nervous because something illegal's in the car. He's just very nervous because the cop's talking to him and asking him if he's doing anything illegal, and, he pulled him over for speeding. And so the officer ends up searching the vehicle and finds anabolic steroids in a cooler, in a small vial. So they end up arresting my client for illegal possession of a controlled substance.
Okay, so this all began with a traffic stop, which might have been disproportionately, done because of his race, and now he's being arrested for possession of something that may or may not be illegal at all. Is that right?
Right. So, if you're in possession of a controlled substance and you don't have a valid prescription, then that's a crime. And if you're in possession of a liquid controlled substance without a valid prescription, in this particular case, it was a felony. And so, he had to hire us. He was arrested. He had to spend, almost 72 hours in jail before he was seen by the judge. And then he was able to provide a valid prescription for the steroids. He was prescribed the steroids for low testosterone, and he was absolutely entitled to be in possession of them. The problem was he was traveling, so he took the vial that he was prescribed. It was a large vial, and he took some of the liquid out of that vial and put it in a smaller vial. And so, he explained that to the police officer, but the police officer didn't buy it and arrested him, and then he had to hire us.
Okay, well, if someone feels that they've been, wrongly arrested for racial profiling or any other type of unfair traffic stop, how do they get a hold of you?
We'll include a link in the description where they can call, text, or chat with a member of my team anytime, day or night. Here at Just Criminal Law, we know you only get one shot at justice, so make yours count.